everyone, welcome back to PrepTalk podcast. I'm your host Vartika Bhandari. This is SAT exam series, and in today's podcast we are going to talk about the second section of the exam, writing and language. To further understand this podcast and learn more about the test and the upcoming changes expected in the digital SAT format, we have with us once again Pooja Agarwal, English faculty at Utila Prep. Hello Pooja, welcome back. How is it going?
Hi Vartika, really glad to be here and it's all going great.
Thank you. So let's begin with the podcast.
Alright.
Okay, so our first question to you is, what is the writing and language section all about in SAT?
So the SAT writing and language section with its 44 questions is all about grammar, punctuation and expression of ideas, which includes organization and placement as well. Now, one of the ways in which we can imagine this section is about the writing skills that a student possesses, and the way in which those writing skills are tested is done by giving the student a passage to edit. So when you are good as an editor, you are also expected to be good as a writer. So if you look at it, grammar and the correct punctuation as well as the correct organization of ideas is all that it takes to produce a good essay. And that is what you are being tested on. So that's what the writing and language section is all about.
All right. So talking about the new digital SAT format, we know that major things are not out yet, but we know a few things. So we would want you to put a light on what the students can expect in the upcoming format, in particularly writing and language section.
Right, so Vartika, as you said, right now there is not a lot of information that has been released by College Board, but a quick search will tell you that we are looking at major changes in the exam format.
Okay.
First of all, it comes as a heartening news that the exam is no longer going to be 3 hours 15 minutes long. It is going to be reduced to a 2-hour test with 4 sections, 2 for math and 2 for English. Now, a major change is that there will no longer be a separate reading or a writing and language section. There will be an overlap of concepts in section number 1 and section number 2. So you will see similar kinds of questions in both the sections instead of the sections being dedicated to entirely 2 areas. So that's a new difference that you will see in the format. Secondly, the question numbers are going to be reduced. So we are not looking at 52 and 44 questions anymore. The idea is that there will be 27 questions in each of the sections. That significantly takes the load off of a student's shoulder when it comes to the number of questions that have to be answered and the time to be spent. Secondly, the length of the passages is going to be reduced for both reading and writing sections. So since we are discussing the writing and language section, here the passages are going to be shorter and we are anticipating 1 question with 1 passage. So it is going to be more rapid in that sense. So now if we come to the content of the test, again there is not a lot of news from the College Board, but what we know is that the concepts that are tested on the exam are expected to be more or less the same. If we go back to the format of the old SAT which was scrapped in the year 2016, right? A lot of the question categories and the content topics were retained in the current SAT that we are dealing with, and the same is anticipated for the upcoming attempt as well for the revised SAT format.
So do you think the anticipation of students about the content that there is going to be in the new digital format in 2023 is worth it? Like, it is creating anxiety in students. So what do you have to say about it?
So Vartika, these days in class we get a lot of questions regarding this, whether students should take their December attempt, that's the last attempt of 2022, or should they wait all the way till March for the new format. To which I always tell them that there have been changes in the exam format before and we have handled it. The College Board obviously wants the students to have a chance at success, right? So the change in the format has not been done to shock the students. It is just to keep up with the times. That's it. So we are anticipating that a few weeks before the March attempt, there will be more clarity from the College Board regarding the content as well as the format of the test. All of it will become more clear. So I don't think students have a lot of reason to worry. As far as writing and language is concerned, we are expecting the concepts to be more or less the same. So you can continue preparing for the March SAT just the way students have been preparing for the tests so far. That's it. Of course, worry is natural. It is the fear of unknown, but it's nothing that we cannot deal with.
Alright. So how much practice is required to attain a good score and complete the section on time?
When we talk about getting a very good score on the test and finishing it in time, there are two things that come into play. One is conceptual clarity, whether you know the concepts, and the second is whether you are able to recognize the kind of question they're asking you and attempt it accordingly. The strategy for a punctuation question is going to be different than a rhetoric question or a question based on passage organization, right? So basically you need to have those different tools and skills to be able to deal with these deal with the variety of questions. Now, how do you acquire those skills? That is what is done through practice and a lot of. Now, that is what can be achieved through practice, and that practice needs to be very strategic. We are going to evaluate the concepts which you are already good at, the concepts which you need to work more on, and the concepts which you find relatively more challenging. And that is how we like to approach the practice. So, there are, of course, plenty of resources to help you practice each concept in a manner that you perfect it. So again, both the things need to go hand in hand, your conceptual clarity and your strategy for attempting those questions. And timing often does not end up being a major issue in the writing and language section as long as you have considerable practice of the topics. And as you know, we conduct a full length testing cycle for our students where we make them do the tests week after week, right? So as long as the student is showing a good performance in those tests and is taking the necessary actions to improve the performance test after test, the student is going to be in a good position by the time he or she faces the actual exam.
Alright. So since we spoke about how to get good scores, so what is considered a good score in this section?
Anything above 40 is considered to be a very good score. There needs to be a little bit of a wiggle room, right? So you cannot always expect a 44 from everybody, but anything that's above 40, 41 is considered a very good score, and it's going to help you achieve a good overall score.
Is SAT writing any different from ACT English section? If yes, then in what ways?
ACT versus SAT, alright. So both the tests have their own features, where the ACT first of all is a computer based test so far. Of course the SAT is also going to become digital next year. But as far as we are concerned with the current situation, the ACT is a test of timing, how fast you can be. When you are answering 75 questions in 45 minutes, that becomes a test of your speed. Right? And the SAT, even though it is paper based, it tests the concepts in a slightly different manner. A lot of times you will see the wording of the questions and the way in which the answer choices are presented is more convoluted than what you will see on the ACT. So both the tests test you on slightly different skills, but the concepts tested on both the tests are the same.
Alright. So moving on to our last question. So what are some common mistakes that students make while attempting this section, and how can they take care of that? So by this question, you're basically asking what tips would you suggest to the students to perfect this section even more?
So a big challenge that we face in the initial few interactions with the student is to make them learn that they're not supposed to answer the question by the sound of it.
Okay.
So understanding the correct rule and not inventing our own rules on the basis of the sound is one very important thing to learn while you are practicing for the SAT. The second thing is to always read the sentences end to end and understand their meaning, interpret what the sentences are trying to tell you. Because even though grammar is based on rules, yes, it is not devoid of context. Context is key to answering any question in the writing and language section as well. So it's very important to understand what the sentence is trying to tell you interpreting it, and then moving on to the answer choices. So these are the two very important things. One is grammatical rules and the second is understanding the text.
Okay.
And the third thing that really helps is the process of elimination, because the College Board is really smart at hiding the correct answer or overshadowing it with other options. What are those other options, or what are those wrong answer traps, is something that a student really needs to understand, because process of elimination takes you a long way. So these are my 3 tips for making sure that you are able to give your best to the writing and language section of SAT.
So I believe this podcast was very fruitful for every listener. Thank you so much, Pooja, for being here.
Thank you, Vartika. It was a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Thank you. So to all the listeners, we hope today's episode was helpful for you. If you like the segment, don't forget to like, share and subscribe it further. Stay tuned for the next episode where we discuss about SAT math section. And have a good day. We shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.